Today we are going to be ranking every attacker in Year 9 Season 4 of Rainbow Six Siege. We're just going to be doing the same basic S, A, B, C, D tiers. If you didn't see already, I posted the Defender tier list a little bit earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. But yeah, in this video we're just going to be doing the same exact thing. We're just going to be ranking all of these operators as they appear at the bottom of your screen there, starting off with Sledge. So Sledge has definitely been forgotten about. I know there's so many different threads all over Reddit and Twitter talking about how Sledge is just being completely left in the dust, and I couldn't agree with them more. Sledge right now in the current state of the game is a C tier. He absolutely needs some sort of a buff, whether it's to all soft breachers or if it's just to him in general or his L8. I don't know what they need to do, but they need to make him better because he is just completely irrelevant right now. And then looking at Thatcher, I would say Thatcher is probably as high as a B tier goes, maybe even a low A tier. I could totally understand that. He's just becoming less good as there's more, like the impact EMPs or more operators getting added to the game that do the same thing as Thatcher. Maybe not quite as good, but it still takes away from Thatcher's, his really special ability, because for a long time he was the only one that could do what he could do. You needed to have a Thatcher every single round or else you weren't going to get the wall open. It's just different these days. He's not quite as good as he once was, so we're just going to put him in the high B tier. Ashe right now, I'm going to say, is definitely high A tier, maybe even lower S tier. I'm not sure. We could definitely end up changing around this tier list a little bit. Actually, I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm just going to go S tier right now. Like I said, definitely could change around, but I think it's just going to make more sense having Ashe in the S tier. She's just so good, and I definitely mentioned this, I think, in the last tier list video. We're not just ranking these operators on, one certain aspect. You know what I mean? We're ranking them on everything that they bring to the table. So yes, I am highly ranking Ashe, mostly because of her ACOG or 4C, and there's going to be a lot of people that think I shouldn't be ranking these operators on their loadouts. It should just be their gadgets, but that's just not how Siege works. You gotta rank them on everything that they have, everything that they bring to the table, like I said. So definitely Ashe, ACOG or R4C is, carrying her, but that's just how it goes. Thermite, I'm going to say, is B tier. I think there's just better hard breachers in the game. I know this is something a lot of people probably don't agree with me on. Most people would say that Thermite is still the best hard breacher in the game. It's just something that I could never really get on board with, and we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that as we come across more hard breachers here. Twitch is probably going to go low B tier, just not quite as good as she once was. That's not to say that she's bad though. Of course, B tier is just kind of balanced. It's where all of these operators are, trying to get to. This is where Ubisoft wants most of their operators to be. They want them to be balanced, so it's not to take anything away from Twitch. She's just sort of in a good state right now. She's just balanced. Montagne has been nerfed very, very far. He has definitely taken the biggest hit after this big shield rework, or I guess you could just say nerf that has happened with this season. I'm going to say he is a high C tier. He's still good. There are still really good Montagne players out there that know what they're doing, but man, it is way harder to play Montagne now than it was. Of course, you have all the different things that this nerf brought to the table, where you can now melee the Monty when they have their shield fully deployed, and as you melee them more of their body becomes exposed. That's absolutely massive. And the shield stunning thing, I'm not even sure what that's called. There's just so much that goes into it that has made Monty fall tremendously. He was probably S or A tier last season, and now he's all the way down in C tier. Again, this C tier, I think I said it in the last tier list video also, it's more of a situational tier than really a C tier. A lot of these operators that fall into this area are going to be not necessarily bad, but they're just, kind of niche. They're good in certain contexts, not all the contexts. So Monty definitely fits into that tier. Glaz is just going to go D tier. It seems like every once in a while I get some people that comment on these tier lists since I do them every season, and they kind of, they hate on the fact that I hate on Glaz, or, when we get to Cali also. And I don't know, like, you really can't say that Glaz is a game-changing operator. He's not that good, and I get it, there are some times where he's alright, but there's not even very many contexts where I would consider him to be situational. You know what I mean? Like, I never really want to see a Glaz on my team. I don't really think they bring anything to the team. Even a really good Glaz, I don't think they bring a whole lot of advantages to the team either. So I think Glaz is just going to have to sit down there in the D tier. I don't think there's anything Ubisoft can really do about it to change him, to make him any better. I just think at his core, he's just not a very game-changing operator. Fuze, I'm going to say, is a B tier operator right here in between Thermite and Twitch. He's just good, you know what I mean? He's balanced. He's not necessarily a game wrecker, and there's a lot of objectives or a lot of, site setups where he's completely irrelevant, where you don't want to fuse at all. However, the occasional basement objective where you have a soft ceiling above, he is really, really good and definitely a game changer. So I think he's just kind of balanced right now. Now we have another shield. We have Blitz. I think Blitz is probably in a better place right now than Monty, and I would go as far as to say Blitz is balanced. And I don't know if I ever would have thought I would have ever said that Blitz is balanced. It seems like for the last 4 years, Blitz has either been, completely useless or way overpowered. I think right now he's just fine, and, we're still in the early stages of Operation Collision Point here. We could very well find out some new metas and some new tactics of playing these shields as we go along with the season, but with the short amount of time that I have played these operators, it seems like the shields are just kind of, they're alright. And I think that where I have Monty in the C tier and Blitz in the B tier, I think that definitely reflects, how they are playing at this exact moment in, ranked play. IQ, I'm going to say, is probably a middle C tier operator. It's really not that great, and I say this, I feel like, every time in these attacker tier lists. I'm a big IQ player. She's probably one of my most played operators in the history of my 7 years playing this game, and she's just kind of not with the current playstyle. You know what I mean? She's a little bit too slow, just not quite as good as she once was, and definitely could use a little bit of a buff in my personal opinion. And I don't know, she's just kind of irrelevant right now, and I don't think anyone's really going to disagree with me on that. Buck, I think, is definitely an S tier operator. This is I'm now realizing it's a very weird way that this tier list is shaping up here. We have no one in the A tier, but I think that Buck, again, just another soft breaching operator, which embodies everything you want. It really, in so many contexts. I mean, he is the absolute best solo queue operator, and as someone who solo queues a lot, he's just everything you want. He's the Swiss Army knife, great loadout as well. He brings so much to the table. It's not that he is overpowered, so I don't want you guys to think that this S tier is just an overpowered tier, because it's really not. It's just that Buck is undoubtedly, in every sense of the word, or every sense of the phrase, I guess I should say, one of the best operators in the game. Now we have Blackbeard. What you're probably here for, if you don't know, if you've been out of the loop, Blackbeard had a massive remaster or rework, I'm not even sure what they're calling it anymore, this past season, and I don't know, I think he's really good. There are some people who are saying he's kind of weak, especially with all the shield changes. I think that Blackbeard is the first A tier, submission we have here. And again, I feel like I've said this a couple times, but really this is one of those operators. In a million years, I would have never guessed we would be putting Blackbeard in the A tier. I think personally Ubisoft did a pretty good job of keeping his core integrity of who he is, and I think they made him much more powerful, but not overpowered, because, he was originally overpowered when he first came into the game. So right now, I think that he is definitely A tier. I could totally see some nerfs coming to him in the future. There's also the couple of people I've seen online. I guess it's not really a couple of people, because, there's a lot of people online who have been saying that he's not as good as they thought he was. I don't know. Like I said, the season is still early, and from the short amount of time I have played him, I think he's certainly an A tier operator. But especially for Blackbeard, let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Capit&atilde, I'm going to go in the A tier as well. I think he's probably going to end up being somewhere lower in this A tier, so he's a little bit high right now, but I think that he's just a really good operator to have, especially like if you play him the right way. I'm not one that really conforms to the TDM meta of Rainbow Six Siege. If you do, and I'm sure it's probably most people watching this video, you probably aren't going to agree with me on it, but if you just slow down your playstyle just a little bit, you're going to see that operators like Capit&atilde, and I guess even like Grim when we get around to him, are just really, really good. You know what I mean? They just bring a lot to the table, and you don't really get what they bring to the table from other operators. And that value alone, I think, definitely constitutes the A tier. So now we have Habana. I think Habana is a slightly worse hard breacher than Thermite, so we're gonna put her just lower here in the B tier. Still really good, you know what I mean? Again, the B tier is just the balanced tier. I think that she is good, except I would rather play Thermite, like, you know, 2 out of the 3 times I'd probably, you know, choose Thermite over Habana, but, you know, 1 out of the 3 times I'll probably choose Habana. So that's not to take anything away from Habana. Still really good, like I said, just, you know, slightly worse than Thermite. Jackal is still an A tier operator. It doesn't matter what Ubisoft does to this guy. There is a reason why he is one of the most banned operators in all of Siege. He is just so good in every sense of the word. In fact, I kind of think he probably belongs up here, a little bit higher up in the A tier. Just so good. Ying definitely is less good now with her 2-second delay, or I don't even remember. I think it was 2 seconds that she had, you know, with this past season that got added. I think she is a very high B tier operator. It's kind of hard. I don't know. Maybe she's still low A tier. I think I'm gonna leave her in low A tier for right now. It's just what she brings to the table, her core, you know, ability is so good. And in fact, the core ability itself is overpowered. There's not many delays or things of that nature that Ubisoft can add that is going to take away from that. I think she's slightly less good. You know, she was definitely high A tier, maybe even S tier last season. I think Ying right now in this current state is high B tier, low A tier. I could see either way. I'm gonna leave it at that for right now. I'm gonna throw Zof in the low B tier. I almost just went high C tier, and then I thought about it. I don't think Zofia belongs down here with the likes of these 3 operators. I think she belongs on the lower end of all of these operators. Again, just balanced. I think she definitely is on the lower end of balanced in terms of loadout. I think her M762 and LMG-E are both not amazing right now, but again, she's just a good soft breacher, and I think that she's just, you know, like I said, balanced. Dokkaebi is still one of the best operators in the game, not just attackers, in the entire game. 100% S tier. In fact, I'll probably put her closer to the top of the S tier. Just so good. And again, like one of those operators I talked about with Ying, her core ability is so good. Her core ability is what is overpowered. There's not many delays or little tiny tweaks that Ubisoft can really add to take away from that. I think that Dokkaebi is going to be absolutely commanding this S tier for many years still to come. Lion, definitely C tier, not all that great. I really don't think you bring anything at all to the team if you're playing Lion. There's so many better operators that do similar things to Lion. You know, the scanning ability, if you really want that, you can play Jackal, or, you know, there's just many better options. And I get that it's not all the same. I just don't think what Lion does is all that great. I think he could definitely use a little bit of a buff here. So for now, he's going to be in that low C tier. Finka, I'm going to put in the A tier, definitely on the lower side. I'm not sure what people are going to think about that. In my personal opinion, I think she has a great loadout with her spear and her LMG. You know, the spear could be a little bit better, but I think it's definitely fine. I play her LMG personally anyway. And just her ability of having, like, it's being a healing operator on attack is so useful. And it's different from defense because you don't need to have a dock play every round. You should have some healing operator, but you could have a Rook, or you could have a Thunderbird, or, you know, something like that. With Finka, you're really the only one bringing what you bring to the entire attacking team. And I think that alone definitely would justify her being in the A tier. Maverick, I think, is the definition of a balanced operator. You haven't even heard Maverick's name in the patch notes or any updates, I feel like, in a really long time, and I think that there's a reason for that. I think they just kind of figured him out. He's good, he's not amazing, and he's not bad in any way. You know, you don't really want him every single round, but, you know, more often than not, you probably have a Mav, and I think he's just kind of balanced. Nomad, I'm going to throw in the low A tier, probably right above Finka. Just a really good operator to have. I think she is a must in my personal opinion. I think you should have a Nomad almost every round, and I just, you know, the air jabs are so good. Her main AR is also really good. And then speaking of Nomad, I feel like Gridlock, a lot of what they do is the same, you know, blocking off key rotation points or any roamers, any flankers. I think Gridlock is just slightly worse than Nomad, so I'm going to put Gridlock in the high B tier. Nomad's going to be in the lower end of the A tier, so they're not, you know, there's not a whole lot of discrepancy, but I think it definitely reflects that Nomad is slightly better. Nokk is still really not good. I know she had the slight changes to her. She's just still irrelevant, you know, like she is just not really all that great, and I don't think there's a whole lot that Ubisoft can do without entirely changing her ability that is going to make her that good. You know, I've seen a lot of things online where people are saying she should be able to walk through things like Capcan traps or proximity alarms without them going off. I think that would make her a little bit too good. I just think what she has right now is nowhere near good enough, so there has to be some kind of a common ground where they can make Nokk at least move up into this lower end B tier, but for now, definitely lower C tier. Amaru, I'm going to throw in the lower C tier. Again, situational, just like a lot of these operators down here. Just kind of fine, you know. It's cool and all to have an Amaru here and there for map control and things of that nature, but not necessarily someone I want to see get played very often. Cali, I'm sorry to my Glaz and Cali players, all my snipers out there, just D tier. Like, you really don't want to see either of these players or these operators get chosen very often, and even if you are a really good Glaz or Cali player, I think there's just so many other opportunities. You know, you're missing out on a lot of utility by choosing these operators when you could choose other operators from this list, so there's just not many contexts where I want either of these. Iana, I think, is definitely in this middle to high B tier, just like I said, balanced, not all that crazy, just, you know, she definitely was sitting up here in this higher A tier, maybe even S tier for a long time. That feels like it was a long time ago now, at least, but I think they kind of figured it out. She's just, you know, she's just there, nothing all that special. Now Ace, I think, is definitely the best heart breacher in the game. You got the AK-12, which is incredible, and then also just the Selmas in general, I think, are just better than what Thermite or Habana brings to the table. I don't really know, and this is something that people have disagreed with me on for a long time. I've always reflected this in all of my tier lists. I've always had Ace above Thermite and above Habana, and nothing's changed with this season. I still believe it, so let me know if you guys disagree with my hard breacher placements here. But moving on to Zero, I don't know, man. I think Zero is an S tier operator. Again, no idea. I have no idea what you guys are going to think about this. Maybe I'm absolutely insane. I mean, he had like a silent buff this season, you know, giving him 6 Argus cams, and at the same time, he has probably the best loadout in the entire game. I can't see how he would be anything less than S tier. And I think that people aren't going to like this still. And I just don't understand. I mean, everything that Zero has would point towards him being one of the best operators in the entire game. And so maybe you put him in the high A tier, but I can't imagine him being any lower than that. Flores, I'm going to throw in the higher B tier, probably somewhere around there, I guess closer to the middle of the B tier. He's just kind of fine, again, just balanced. Osa, I'm going to say, is probably higher C tier, just kind of situational. There are some times where you want an Osa, but a lot of times where you probably don't. I really like Sens. I really think that Sens is good, and I don't know what you guys think about Sens right now. I just think Sens is definitely balanced. I don't think that you could put Sens any lower or any higher than that. Maybe moving Sens somewhere within this B tier, but I think that just kind of makes sense. no pun intended. Grim, I'm going to put in the lower A tier. Again, I talked about Grim slightly with Capit&atilde earlier. They do some of the same things, just in very, very different ways. I think that if you slow down your playstyle a little bit and you try out Grim, I think he is one of the best in the game at what he does. Definitely lower A tier. I'd probably take Capit&atilde over Grim, but you know, still really good and a really good loadout as well. Brava, I'm going to throw in the low A tier as well, probably above Finka and Grim. I mean, in a game of Rainbow Six Siege, where utility is constantly being added to the game, there's constantly new utility every season on the defender side. Every time, you know, that happens, Brava just gets better. And so I think Brava is in a very good spot right now to be in this A tier. Ram, I'm going to throw in the lower A tier above Grim, actually maybe right behind Grim. Really, really good. I think that she has the ability to change an entire round, and I think any operator that has the ability to change an entire round belongs in the A tier. Deimos, there are a lot of people out there that love Deimos a little bit too much. I think that he is top of the B tier. You know, he came into the game very balanced. He hasn't had any changes to him, you know, yet. And I think there's a reason for that. I think he is just exactly what Ubisoft wanted him to be. He's not being exploited. He's not being played, you know, monstrous amount of times. He's just kind of there. And in my opinion, he's just good. But I don't think he's any lower than this. I could definitely understand maybe A tier. I don't think he's really lower than a higher B tier operator. And then Striker, yeah, whatever. We'll put you in the situational. He does have a lot of utility, which makes him pretty good here and there. But come on, you don't need to be playing Striker. So that is it. That is the Year 9 Season 4 Operation Collision Point Attacker tier list, featuring all of the new changes that came with this new season, including Blackbeard. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I always love hearing your guys' opinions down there, so let me know what you would change. And besides for that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.